What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Armin the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Tad the Side. And Tad, in our last episode, we discussed fantasy fallout when it came to rookies that were drafted into the NFL. We talked about some good situations. We also talked about some bad situations. But with today's episode, kind of continuing the conversation there, but we're going to talk about some veterans as far as their stock, as far as whether it has taken a rise or whether it's taken a fall based on rookies that have been drafted to the same team. So, maybe there's a situation where a team should have drafted a running back and they didn't, and that helped the veteran running backs in that backfield already. Maybe there's a situation where they added to the, let's say tight end position like the Jets, and, they're going to be a situation where the rookie's going to benefit instead of the veterans of that position group now as we head into training camp and OTAs and stuff in the summer. So we're looking at both sides of the coin here. So we looked at the rookies in last week's episode, last episode. And in today's episode, we're going to look at the veterans here. So yeah, we're definitely, moving that much closer to fantasy football, Ted, because once the actual NFL draft is over, now people start thinking about start formulating some strategies as far as what to sort of plan for as we get closer and closer to July and August, which is draft season.
Well, all right. So yes, we are gonna dive into all of that, but real quick, because normally we dedicate a whole episode to this. We've kind of abandoned that, which personally I think is a good move. The schedule release videos happened this week.
They did. Your Colts were the center of some controversy. I don't know if you know that.
Wait, what'd they do?
Do you really not know?
No, I have no idea.
So they released a Minecraft style video.
Oh, God damn it. Oh.
But that's not the controversy. The controversy surrounds the controversy surrounds the very first matchup between the Colts and the Dolphins. They had a scene depicting Tyreek Hill as a literal dolphin. The Coast Guard was arresting the dolphin. Yeah.
I mean, maybe don't beat your child and then that joke, goes away. How about that? Huh? Funny how that works. She be
literally, I think it was like they posted the video when all the other
did they take it down?
You posted or whatever. They took it down, I think, within an hour or 2 hours, or a lot of people saved it. So it's like you could still find it on Twitter or Instagram or what have you. You can still find the video. But Tyreek Hill himself commented on the video. He's I actually thought this was pretty funny.
Okay.
But yeah, the Colts, they issued an apology to Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins and all this stuff. But yeah, your Colts are at the center of a little bit of controversy around the NFL.
Finally, it only took 5 years, but finally we did something interesting. No, my favorite, and I sent this to you. I don't know if you watched it, but the Titans, I mean, they just hit a home run and they do the same shtick every year, but it's still funny. I'm just like, yeah, we asked people on Broadway Street, who is this team? And they just the comedic perfection is just so good. Is because they had two different groups be like, Cowboys, that's the Cowboys. Both times it was the Colts.
Yeah.
It's just every time they hit it with the NFL music, dun 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 dun, it's like chef's kiss, it's just perfect.
But yeah, it's definitely,
Boston Bobcats. It was the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, something along those lines. We had the Chargers do a Minecraft video as well with,
I guess with the movie,
with the movie. But yeah, I think the thing that the Chargers do a lot better is they do a lot more of the jokes and the references and things along those lines. So that's sort of where they sort of succeed a little bit more than the Colts did.
At least they did it more subtly.
That is true. We had the Niners did an 8-bit video version. So that was actually one of the ones that I actually liked from the past couple of years that the Niners have done. So that was actually pretty nice. The Falcons did a Mario Kart style
The Falcons one was awesome.
Falcons one was pretty good. Falcons was pretty good. I didn't think it was as effective, but the Saints did a very similar to the Key and Peele sketch with the Barack Obama, the angry translator or whatever. So they did the same sketch with
I thought that
Kellen
was a
Moore as
little
the
too
head coach.
try hard.
Yeah, I don't think it was
Like
as effective.
Here's the thing: is like you got to know your coach. Like Kellen Moore is like he's not the comedic coach. Like if Mike McDaniel tried that, I think that could have gone off very well. But yeah, no, Kellen Moore is just like, white guy, you're trying so hard.
Yeah. So I think they're just obviously trying to inject some sort of like, playfulness, some comedicness with the new head coach, obviously there, but just, it just wasn't as effective there for sure. But yeah, so I know we didn't obviously dedicate a whole episode to that, but yeah, go check them out. There's a lot of good ones out there. There are some, you can probably still find that Colts one out there. Like I said, if you want to see exactly the controversy surrounding that.
Damn it, my phone. I don't have my phone on me, but yes, no, I'm looking that up right after this episode.
But yeah, definitely, Tad, we definitely want to get into, like I said, more fantasy talk because this is sort of the direction that we're going to be going to with the summer upon us. And then obviously as we get that much closer to July and August, that much closer to fantasy football starting. So we want to make sure that all the people out there, they're tuning into our podcast, watching our YouTube videos, they're up to date with all of their fantasy info to get them prepared for fantasy drafts and draft season and fantasy football season overall. So like I talked about, want to talk about some veterans as far as whether their stock has risen or fallen based on the NFL draft. So let's start with guys that maybe saw a benefit here. So, maybe a team didn't address a position that's going to help some veterans there. Maybe they drafted some players, but they drafted them a lot later. So they're not going to be a huge factor as far as this season is concerned. Maybe dynasty, maybe more of a factor here. But just Ted, when you look at the NFL draft and you see where teams drafted players, where do you think is a team with the players specifically that probably benefited by a team not addressing a position, or just overall, just like I said, because of how things played out, they're going to still be a very solid fantasy producer come the season?
So, oh man, I'm blanking on his name. This is what I call like the Bo Callahan situation. We're in draft day. What is the name of Tom Welling's quarterback? Do you remember?
Brian Drew, right?
Brian Drew. Thank you. Okay. This is what I call the Brian Drew situation, right?
Like the only one who returned the $100 bill or whatever, right?
Oh, do you want to know the name of the quarterback? No, it was Brian Drew. God, that movie is so good.
No, it's
so bad, but so good. So it's like he's like your perfect like mid-level C movie. It's like it tried to be Moneyball so bad, but still. But this is what I call the Brian Drew situation, where you're a veteran on a team and your value actually goes up because of what happened or did not happen in the draft. So just some clarification on like how we're measuring this. This was a very easy pick for me, especially because I'm friends with a couple Bears fans. I'll touch on that later. But DeAndre Swift, his value not only like stayed level, I think it went up because all I was hearing from Bears reporters and everything was like, we need to fix this running back situation, which really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Because you look at what DeAndre Swift did, 959 yards rushing, 3.8 yards per carry. Yeah, definitely not good. I'm not going to defend his last season and be like, hey, that was great. But let's also remember that Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator through the first 9 weeks, and he got fired in his first year. And remember, I don't know if you saw this, a story dropped today that a book is about to drop, like, I guess, chronicling quarterbacks. It turns out Caleb Williams had some doubts about going to Chicago.
Okay, yes. I did read about this.
So he said that, apparently in this direct quote from the book, Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die, is a direct quote from Caleb Williams. And also, he did not like offensive coordinator at the time, Shane Waldron. So I think it's very obvious why this guy got canned halfway through the season. So I think, I know a lot of people are like, well, you can't just give him a pass. I'm giving him a pass. I'm giving DeAndre Swift a pass. And let's also not forget, DeAndre Swift played under Ben Johnson in Detroit in 2022. Now, he did not set like any career highs there, but he did have 6 touchdowns. And speaking of 6 touchdowns, Roschon Johnson last season had a pretty solid sophomore season with 6 touchdowns. So the whole the Bears need a running back, I never really understood where that talk was coming from. And I think the Bears front office agrees with me because they did not touch a running back until the 7th round. I'm going to try this. You know the name I'm about to try?
I do know the name, yeah.
Okay, so you can correct me if I get it wrong.
I think so.
Here's the worst part is I looked up last night while I was prepping my notes, and it was one of those things where like they pronounce their own names, and he mumbled his way through it. I'm like, you're not helping, dude.
Nice.
The Bears only ended up taking Kyle Monangai.
I think it's Monangai.
Ah, damn it.
I'm pretty sure it's Monangai.
But yeah, Kyle M. In the 7th round. So
the kid from Rutgers. You could just
the kid, Ray Rice at Rutgers. Wait, what?
Hey, if he plays like Ray Rice, then that's a beautiful find by them.
Ooh. But I think that was the point, is because it was funny is like I think the Bears front office agrees with me in terms of like that was a sign of no, we have our guys. And I agree with them. Of just like these are two very talented backs on your roster. Why throw in unneeded competition when you have needs very much elsewhere? And I think that's where the Bears are one of my draft winners, because they decided of like, no, we're going to attack the like real trouble spots rather than like, running back didn't quite pull off what we wanted to. So I think it's the familiarity with Ben Johnson, I think is really going to help Swift. And then, you look at Kyle
Monangai. Monangai.
Yeah, man, it's just him. But it was too funny because friend of the show, Jason Davis, was doing his fantasy draft over the weekend. And I know what you guys are like over the weekend. What does that mean? His Dynasty's draft is like 3 days long, which is exhausting, even helping him out. But he actually texted me of like, okay, should I take this guy? And Kyle Hemna was one of them. That dude was so far off my radar. I was like, dude, no. Like he was only on Jason's radar because he is a Bears fan. Fantasy wise, I see absolutely no value in him. Maybe a couple of years down the road, he might get there. But for now, I really think that DeAndre Swift is going to be the main ball carrier. And you look at, what was it? Sonic and Thunder, Sonic and Lightning. What was the Detroit nickname?
Are you serious right now?
Oh, Sonic and Knuckles. There we go.
The same, bro.
I got that.
That is really bad video game knowledge.
I got it. I eventually got there. Yeah, Idris Elba voice Knuckles.
He did.
That's such great casting. But anyway, so I think that like Swift is going to be the Knuckles and Roschon Johnson is going to be the Sonic. I don't think it's going to work out quite as effectively as it did in Detroit in year one, but still, I think that duo is going to have enough, impact on the field to be fantasy relevant. So the fact that I almost said Detroit, the fact that Chicago did not touch a single running back until the 7th round tells me that Ben Johnson is confident in this running back by committee. DeAndre Swift just shot up from like a 5th round pick, because if they took, they were never going to get Genty. If they took like Hampton, for example, don't know how that would have worked, but whatever. We'll just run with a hypothetical. If they took Hampton, I would be like, I don't know about Swift, like maybe a 5th rounder. But now that like they did not take any real contender for his spot, all of a sudden DeAndre Swift is a fascinating 2nd round pick to me.
I don't know if I like his stock to rise that much, but I think it sort of stayed the same because, I totally agree with you. I think all the talk for some reason was just that Chicago needed to address the running back position. I was like talking to my good friend Jay, who's a Bears fan. He's like, what do you think the Bears are going to do at number 10? I was like, it'd be smart for them to attack the edge rusher. Maybe they address the offensive line some more.
Offensive line is where they really should have focused, and they did. They addressed it, but yes, I agree. Sorry,
I think they probably could have gone tackle, but overall, it's like I like the play of Braxton Jones. I think the rest of their offensive line should be good to see how it plays out this year. So it's like that was a necessary need. You get Colson Loveland. I think it's good. You really give Caleb Williams just all the weapons that he needs to sort of find success there. But just all this rumors about them, like, oh, are the Bears in on Ashton Genty? Will they make that move to possibly, like you said, I don't think he's going to fall to a 10, but it's like, do they make a move to jump up to surpass some of the teams that were going to take him at 6, like the Raiders, or possibly the Jaguars were rumored to take him at 5 or whatever it was. It's like, do they make a move to get that guy to really shore up their position? I was like, no, DeAndre Swift is a very good running back. There's a lot of talk about Roschon Johnson being very successful coming out of Texas as well. I know Bijan Robinson got more of the attention, which rightly he should have, But a lot of people talk about Roschon Johnson being a very good back out of Texas as well. So to him to land with the Bears, it's like you got that good 1-2 punch, the Sonic and Knuckles, the Lightning and Thunder, whatever you want to call it there. So it's like you want to see how it plays out this year. You need to see how it's going to fit into Ben Johnson's system. It's like you want to see how the rest of the team is going to play. Was this a position of focus? I don't think it was. So I think it's very smart that the Bears didn't address that running back position until later with Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. You want to see what Swift can do. You want to see what Roschon Johnson can do. With that upgrade offensive line, that's the smartest thing that the Bears did is they addressed the offensive line,
100%.
which will immediately help the running game. So yeah, I do like DeAndre Swift as a fantasy running back a lot more without them drafting a rookie running back with a sort of, quote unquote premium pick, like a day 1 or day 2 pick. But I don't think I want to push DeAndre Swift all the way into like the second round category. Like I was
just about to ask you, what's your ADP for him?
So I still see him as like somewhere in that third or fourth round. So I like him as like
I have him like slightly higher than you do, but nothing like drastically different.
Obviously, it all depends on how the draft plays out. That's usually
true.
your strategy always that you want to play out there. But just like if I'd rather focus on other running backs that I think could find immediate success, more proven success, whereas like this with the new system, that just worries me just a little bit. Like you said, he didn't have the best season last year. I know a lot of it is so many other contributing factors as to why he didn't have a good season last year. But like I said, I think I value him as like that next level option, maybe my first guy off the bench, possibly a flex option, those sorts of things. But I don't see him as that starting running back just yet. RB2 is currently my ceiling right now for him right now. Heading into the draft, I should specify.
Who do you like more, Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift?
Joe Mixon.
Really? Yeah. I think man, I didn't think on that one for a bit. Because I think like those two are like equal in my opinion because the Texans offense is going to be so limited with all those wide receiver injuries.
Sure.
That, I think they could zero in on Mixon. So like, and plus like, let's not forget Ben Johnson is, when it comes to fantasy, that dude is a miracle worker. Like he will make anyone a fantasy monster. So like, I think that's why I'm putting a lot of stock in DeAndre Swift because like I said, like he has no competition now other than Kyle Monangai. Stupid allergies.
No, it makes sense. Like I said, everything makes sense for you. So like I said, I value DeAndre Swift a lot more than I previously did because of what they did to that offensive line. That automatically makes him a lot more of an attractive option once the fantasy draft rolls around. But I think because of the Houston Texans not being able to address their offensive line as much as they wanted to, that means that their passing game may suffer because they won't give CJ Stroud that much time. So which means they may run the ball more. Now, you could obviously counter that by saying, well, okay, if they didn't address their offensive line, what makes you think Joe Mixon's going to have a good season? It's like, I can definitely see that, but it's like he still found himself having a good season last year with a very similar offensive line. So that's why, like I said, at this point, I'm trusting Joe Mixon a little bit more than DeAndre Swift. But like I said, I do like DeAndre Swift heading into this coming year because of everything that you just laid out.
Well, going to the Texans real quick, what really helps addressing the offensive line?
Drafting wide receivers from Iowa State for
not just that, but trading your best offensive lineman. I hear that as a great solution to fixing your offensive line.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting move to sort of put it lightly.
Houston's always going to Houston. Anyway, all right, so who's the vet that you see rising?
I think this one's a very similar situation to yours, where it's like, I think by de facto, because the Steelers didn't really address any other positions, any other players for this particular position in the draft, I think he sort of elevates his status as becoming more of a premier fantasy wide receiver. And that is the newly acquired DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in case you didn't know, for some reason, you're blanking on all the news that has happened recently because it was a while back.
Happens.
It does happen. It's, surprising when it happens, but for some reason, people just suddenly all of a sudden realize that it's like DK Metcalf is a Steeler. There's people out there.
You take 2 muscle relaxers and everything happens. It's
oh gosh. So jumping back to it, Metcalf was acquired by the Steelers during the offseason for a second-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft, and they also swapped 6th and 7th round picks between the Steelers and the Seahawks. So after he was traded to Pittsburgh, they signed him to an extension for 5 years and $150 million. So overall, this trade didn't move this needle a ton because it's like they still had George Pickens. We weren't sure who's going to be playing quarterback. It's a lot of just question marks as far as like, do we really want to trust him in fantasy? He is a good wide receiver 1 when it comes to fantasy football, but he's sort of fringing on that talent, maybe slipping into wide receiver 2 territory. But here's where, like I said, I have him for this segment specifically, is because after the draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers shipped off George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys for a 3rd round and a 5th round pick in 2026. They also sent the Cowboys a 2027 6th round pick along with Pickens to complete the trade there. So this totally just gives this wide receiver room to DK Metcalf now. It's like, I think he becomes the de facto number 1 option in this passing offense now, because I still do agree they still haven't solved who's going to be playing quarterback for them, whether it's Mason Rudolph, whether it's Will Howard, whether it's Skylar Thompson, there's a rumor right now, Tad, that's like the NFL did not schedule the Steelers and the Jets in week 1 unless they thought Aaron Rodgers would be playing for the Steelers.
I saw that. I meant to bring that up earlier. If we get Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, and like somehow that's like a grudge match, like that would, if you hit that on your bingo card, that would have been amazing. Of like, yeah, Justin Fields against the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers against the Jets, grudge match. It's like, who the hell saw that one coming?
So like I said, there's a rumor going around there that the NFL sort of knows something that's actually going to happen. So maybe Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Steelers now with all these moves that have happened there. But just, I think regardless of that, like I said, I think you look at that wide receiver room, they don't really have many other options there outside of like Roman Wilson, who they drafted last year out of Michigan. So it's like they got some good players there. But overall, it's like you look back in 2020, Tad, Metcalf's best season as a pro. He finished 7th as far as fantasy wide receivers in PPR leagues. He had finished that season with 129 targets, 83 receptions, a career high 1,303 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns. Those types of numbers is very realistic for Metcalf to hit with the Steelers, regardless of who's playing quarterback, because like I said, he's the primary option. Now, you could look at that and be like, okay, offenses are going to target him, but I think DK Metcalf has that sort of body type. He has that sort of, ability to sort of separate himself and still bring in a lot of targets, even if he's the de facto option. And, Tad, what is your favorite statistic when it comes to pass catchers in fantasy football?
Targets, baby.
Targets and volume, right? So I think naturally, because he's going to get a lot of targets, he's naturally going to get a lot of receptions. And so because of that, I think regardless of who's playing quarterback, I like DK Metcalf's stock to rise so much more because he was traded to the Steelers. I think they like that there. But then the cherry on top of that Sunday is George Pickens after the draft being traded to the Dallas Cowboys. It's like, oh no, he's clearly their number 1 receiver now.
All right. First off, hot take. Cherry on a Sunday, terrible. Terrible. I'm enjoying ice cream. I don't need goddamn cherry. Like I don't need like this random like pop of sweetness on my Sunday. I got the whipped cream. I got the ice cream. I'm good on the sweet.
See, but I think the thing, Tad, is that maybe you're not eating your sundae correctly. So it's like as soon as you get the sundae, you eat the cherry. You eat the cherry. So it's not even involved in the sundae then.
The cherry is
not even involved in the sundae.
No. The cherry is the dessert on the dessert. You save it for last. What is wrong with you, you heathen?
You eat that thing first. I will say if it doesn't have a stem, it's a lot harder to eat the cherry first. But if it has a stem, you eat that thing first because you don't want to stem your sundae, right?
What is wrong with what? That's what I mean. That's why the cherry on the sundae is overrated. Now, peanuts on a sundae, that is clutch. You add a little bit of the crunch factor. Peanuts on a sundae, very clutch.
I'll give you that.
All right, real quick.
It's a very McDonald's move.
How many receivers in the Steelers receiver room can you name?
Outside of Roman Wilson, probably nobody else.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, one of these shocked me. All right, so there are 3 starting receivers right now. Are DK Metcalf, as you point out.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Woods,
okay.
Robert Woods. Calvin Austin
III. Yeah, he's back. He's with the Steelers, right? That's coming
out of
Memphis.
Damn it! Good call. This one is shocking. You ready for this?
Okay.
Scotty Miller is a Steeler.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That is shocking. You said Roman Wilson, Ben Skowronek.
Oh, Skowronek from LA. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I knew that's Rock Taylor and Lance McCutcheon.
Lance McCutcheon also out of LA. Okay, that's interesting. 2 former Rams
Wow,
from the Steelers.
Okay, I've never heard of Lance McCutcheon before. So no, I completely agree. I'm so glad you brought the targets thing because we commonly say this with good receivers on bad teams is you gotta throw it to somebody. And after George Pickens got shipped off, I had the exact same reaction as you did of like, ooh, DK's value just shot way up. I don't care who's playing quarterback for them. Mm-hmm. They got to throw it to someone, and I think DK is going to get a hell of a lot of targets this season. Also, real quick quiz. What number is DK wearing this year?
I'm guessing it's not 14, right?
It is not 14. You are correct. Which ironically is because George Pickens was wearing that.
I wonder if he's going to get that number now. That'd be interesting to see.
As of now, as of recording, do you know what number he's going to wear? Because it's going to look weird.
4?
Oh, you absolutely. You are correct.
That's what I figured. I'll just just take it with a full 1. Maybe that's what he's going to do.
So, I don't know. Something about I don't think I've ever seen a Steeler wear number 4 before. It's just going to be it's going to be kind of weird to see.
Yeah.
Also,
I agree with that.
Steelers retired number 7.
I think they should, based on their quarterback track record after him. It's like,
good God. So, okay. All right. So let's close this out with this is how much stock do you put in DK's fantasy value, depending on how this quarterback situation goes forward? So I'll give you 2 kind of hypotheticals going forward.
Okay.
One hypothetical is they stick with the QB locker room they have now. The other is they do end up signing Aaron Rodgers. So does either or really affect his stock, or are you just high on him no matter what?
I don't think it affects the stock that much. I'm pretty good on him either way. Surprisingly, if they sign Aaron Rodgers, I actually think it takes a slight dip just based on what I saw. Just based on what I saw from the team and with the New York Jets last year. It's he didn't improve that team all that much. And I think the lateral move between the Jets O-line to the Steelers O-line, while it's a little bit better, I don't think it's significantly better where it's okay, Aaron Rodgers is going to play like prime Aaron Rodgers again. I think that's he's gone. He's gone. So it's he'll be good. He'll be good enough to get to there. That's one of the jokes that they did in the Chargers the release schedule. They're in a mine and they're going on a mine cart or whatever. And it's be careful this doesn't go past 9 feet 8 inches, which is a question of the 9-9-8 record, right? And so I think it's a very similar situation where it's they'll get to that 500 mark, they'll surpass it. But if they make the playoffs, they're not going to go deep with Aaron Rodgers under quarterback. And I feel the same with Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, whoever it is there. But just for some reason, I like the Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, Skylar Thompson situation a little bit more than Aaron Rodgers. But it's not a huge drop off.
It's not a significant difference either way. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Should we go to our losers?
Yeah, I think let's see who got affected the most by the draft and sort of, affected that position group of the respective team there, Tad. So who do you like as a veteran whose stock has dropped significantly after the draft?
Well, it sounds kind of mean if you're who do you like who's fucked? I
know where it is, though.
Yeah, it is kind of. So it was funny because actually I was bouncing between 3 names. I was is it Christian Watson? Nah, it's Jayden Reed. Nah, it's Romeo Doubs. Maybe it's Christian Watson. No, maybe it's Romeo Doubs. And finally, after a conversation with you, I was you know what? Screw it. I'm going the entire Packers receiving core.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
This stat blew my mind. Amir, do you want to guess between Romeo Doubs, Jayden Reed, and Christian Watson, how many 1,000-yard seasons they've had since they've been in the NFL?
I'd say 0.
You are correct. 0.
Yeah.
None of them have reached 1,000 yards receiving. That's insane. My respect for Jordan, because look, I am not a Jordan Love guy. I think he is vastly overrated. But after looking at his receiver stats, I was you know what? Maybe he is actually pretty good. Because if you're making do with this group, that's pretty impressive, to be honest. Because yes, between Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and Christian Watson, none of them have put up a 1,000-yard season in the NFL yet. Now, it is such a clusterfuck that I'm not saying go all in on Savion Williams or go all in on Matthew Golden. I don't know. Honestly, if there's a GB next to the name and it's a receiver, I'm probably staying away because like I said, I'm kind of a Jordan Love doubter. I still don't believe he's legit. And B, I don't know who's going to come out on top. And I don't even think the coaching staff knows who's going to come out on top. So I think that without a doubt, though, they drafted Matthew Golden with the intention of kind of replacing either Christian Watson or Jayden Reed. Now, this is very telling, by the way. So while I was looking up Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs stats, I literally just typed into Google Christian Watson, enter. You know, the first thing that popped up on my feed?
Is he hurt again?
Christian, well, that's a fair guess. Very fair guess, but no.
It wouldn't shock me if he was hurt again.
No, yeah, that also wouldn't shock me, but it was no Christian Watson, the Patriots. I was just like, okay, so they're doing like the whole trade offseason thing. And then after I got done with my research with Christian Watson, I typed in Romeo Doubs. And you'll love this, actually. First result, Romeo Doubs for the 49ers. So basically, like, every Packer is on the like trade block right now in terms of receivers. And here's the deal. Matthew Golden led the SEC with over 20 yards per catch. 20 yards per catch. That's the SEC. That is like top level competition. So I think Matthew Golden is really going to like kind of capture this, number one receiver role. And here's the other thing that I think a lot of people aren't factoring in. And I know this because obviously, he went to my school. Savion Williams is the Swiss Army knife of wide receivers. That dude played more Wildcat quarterback formations for us last season than I care to admit, because it was clearly just like, we got nothing else on offense. Get Savion in there. So this dude is a Swiss Army knife. And here's where that concern comes in with the vets. That used to be Christian Watson's role. Christian Watson used to be their Swiss Army knife, but he cannot stay healthy. And I really, really like Christian Watson as a player. I really do. I think he is a good player, but until you can prove to me you're healthy, it would not shock me if Savion jumped him on the depth chart, because, Savion's there. So in terms of Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, all three of those guys, borderline undraftable, in my opinion. Like, maybe if your draft goes sideways and you're like, shit, I have no like backup wide receivers, I think they're fine bench pieces. But if you're depending on one of those guys in your starting lineup, I think you're screwed from the get-go.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is that this sign of them drafting Matthew Golden, Christian Watson is good as gone. Because I think the biggest thing for me is, like, I've complained about him so many times on the podcast, Dad, that just this guy cannot stay on the field. As electric as he was his rookie year, where he scored, what was it? I think like 5 touchdowns in a span of like 3 games or something like that.
I was going to say 9, but yeah.
I think for the season, that's probably around there. But I talk about, like, there's that streak where he played like 3 straight games and he was scoring a touchdown every single game. And there's one where he scored, I think, 3 touchdowns in one game. And it was just like, this is the guy that they drafted, or a lot of people projected it to be a first-round pick, but he ended up sliding to the second round. But like I said, the biggest thing is just the guy cannot stay on the field. And I think because of that, the Packers are sort of in a situation where it's like, nice thing of him being drafted in the second round. He's only on a 4-year deal. So it's like, yeah, maybe they're hoping to trade him possibly. But if they don't, they're probably just going to let him walk in the offseason. I think drafting a guy like Golden, he is immediately going to step in to one of those starting roles. I do agree also with Romeo Doubs. And I remember he had sort of the issues last year where it's like some, conflicts with the head coaching staff, and they benched him for a game. Do you remember all that drama?
I do.
That they had last year,
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about that, but now that you bring it up, I'm like, oh yeah.
So like, it makes sense where it's like, maybe he's on the trading block as well, because he was drafted not in the first round either. They have not drafted a first round wide receiver. Obviously, that was a stat.
I mean, Golden
they
was
drafted Matthew Golden since 2002, when it was.
Oh shit. Testament Howard? I know that's wrong.
Not Testament.
I know that's wrong.
The Javon Walker.
Damn it.
I
was never going to get that. You could have given me a half hour. I never would have gotten there.
Okay, that's fair. So I think this definitely signifies a sort of change in their passing offense. I still like Jayden Reed. I think him and Jordan Love found a connection throughout the season. So I think he's one of their go-to receivers. He's very much, a reception type of player. So it's like he gets a lot of receptions, moves the chains. He's that type of receiver. He's not going to score a ton of touchdowns for you, but he's going to be one of those guys that's consistently chipping away, moving you down the field that way. Whereas like Golden, like I talked about before, I think this guy's got an impressive catch radius. He's a deep threat. He's got the speed. I think this is a guy that's going to be that home run threat now that they hoped Christian Watson would be if he was being able to sort of stay on the field more. But I think just that's the big problem. Just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I think Matthew Golden's going to replace Christian Watson that way. I think Romeo Doubs may stick on the team possibly, but his role is definitely going to take a hit for sure. But I think in this offense, it's like I still trust Jayden Reed. I'm not down on all veteran receivers. I still like Jayden Reed quite a bit, but I'm down on Doubs. Dontavian Wicks, I think he's completely irrelevant now. Oh, you didn't even bring him up, so it makes sense why you did bring him up.
Yes,
but Christian Watson, like I said, I think he's as good as God too. Maybe this is sort of like an audition year, so it's like he's going to hope to possibly do some good to obviously let him sign a good contract in the offseason, but I think he's no longer going to be a Packer. So I think Golden's a big ticket item, obviously, as a rookie. Savion Williams definitely has some intrigue there, but I think Jayden Reed, as the veteran in that group, he still holds some intrigue for me, so I don't think he goes undrafted. So, but yeah, overall, it's very interesting because, yeah, like I said, it wasn't a shock to me when you said that no Steelers. Packers wide receiver had gone
Steelers too, kind of.
But no Packers wide receiver had gone over 1,000 yards in that span. It's because they're doing it by, a convenient approach. They're not doing it by like, here's the
and
key
plus,
guy.
they had this weird streak where like one misses 4 games at a time, then one blows up in that streak, and then the other comes back, and then the other goes out. Like, it's so bizarre what's happening with the Green Bay offense that like I don't. Honest to God, I don't even try. I would not even draft Jordan Love. The only name on this Green Bay offense, fantasy-wise, I trust is Josh Jacobs.
Fair.
That is the only name I draft with GB next to his name.
No, that's fair. I think it's a very, legitimate reason to sort of avoid the Packers receiving group because it's very much the running back by committee, except at the wide receiver position. That's exactly what it was for the past couple of years. So it's like who to trust. But I think Golden is going to alleviate some of those issues as long as he can come in and prove that he can be the same guy in Green Bay that he was in Texas. I think he can be, but obviously we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out there. But like I said, I still like Jayden Reed in this offense, but everybody else, sorry, it's very hard for me to trust them at all.
All right, 2 things. One, let's say, second to, last round, third to last round, kind of need a receiver. Both Jayden Reed and Matthew Golden are both on the board. Who are you taking?
Matthew Golden.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Also, if you get this, I will be both impressed and concerned. In the 2002 NFL draft, with the 27th pick, the San Francisco 49ers selected
2002. Was that the Ahmed Plummer draft?
It was not.
Okay, then I don't know who that was.
It is a great comedic name. Mike Rumpf.
Mike Rumpf. Right. Yeah, he did not last long either.
I literally never heard of that man. Do you want to guess who went 24th in that year's draft?
Who got 24th overall?
I will give you a hint. The Baltimore Ravens had that selection.
In 2002 by the Baltimore Ravens? No idea.
Okay, that's all right. It's a small player. You probably never heard of him. Ed Reed.
Out of the U. Okay.
Woo! Yeah, also Mike Rumpf out of the U.
Yeah. The U had some good players in the early 2000s.
Was that the bullshit year where they got called on PI against Ohio State?
Probably.
Yeah. God, that was like all-time worst football call. Anyway, all right. So who's the veteran that's dropped in your eyes?
This one sort of hurt me a little bit because there was a player that I was sort of singing his praises all of last year.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. God,
Brock Purdy.
I just really hope he's healthy.
George Kittle. D. Winter.
But this is a guy that, he came in as a rookie last year. I saw a lot of talent from him coming out of Purdue, and I expected him to take the starting role from the current the guy that they replaced Saquon Barkley with, Devin Singletary, with the New York Giants. I expected him to take the starting role. And halfway through the season, he did that because he had a very high level skill there. But I think, unfortunately, Tyrone Tracy Jr. is my veteran father this year. After only 1 year, unfortunately. After only 1 year.
You know what? That's such a good one because I feel so bad for this guy. Because he like came, I didn't have him high on my draft rankings last year. I was like, where the fuck is this? Like everyone was like, oh, who is this guy? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, no. And it sucks because I do agree. The competition that I'm sure you're about to touch on that is brought in probably got to outdo him.
I think easily.
Oh, easily.
I think easily. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it's going to take long.
Right.
I don't think it's going to take long because, yeah, he was a sensational rookie last year. Like I said, Tyrone Tracy Jr., he had the pass catching ability. He had the running ability. He definitely was outshining Devin Singletary. It made sense why they gave him the starting role. But unfortunately, the guy that they drafted this year, I know they only used their 4th-round pick on him, but like I said, Tad, we talked about this before. This was my number 2 running back.
I was just about to say, he was your number 2 back.
I'm a big fan of his. Yeah. There's 2 guys before the draft started, Tad. I was most intrigued to see where our boy Kyle McCord is going to get drafted and where this
Eagles
is good. I know, seriously. That
damn it
so much. I was like, he's not going to do anything now. No, he's not going to do anything.
He's going to be 3rd string behind Dorian Thompson Robinson too. It's like, God damn it. You delivered that news to me because I was on the road or like I wasn't watching day 3 of the draft, and you delivered that news to me, and like legitimately I read that text from you like he's going to the Eagles. Like, damn it!
I know, it really hurt me. I was like,
boy, man, he could have gone
anywhere else, and he might have found some success. So I really am upset by that.
Come on, LA.
The other guy that I was really intrigued to see where he landed, I think I'm very much more optimistic with his situation, is that Cam Skattebo landing with the New York Giants. Because, I mean, like I said, I love this guy coming out of the draft. I think just one of the best runners in this year's draft class. I think, like I said, very good shot to take that starting job from Tyrone Tracy, from Devin Singletary, maybe by like week 4. I could see him possibly being the starting running back by that time. I'm not saying Tyler Tracy's fantasy relevance has completely gone away, but he's definitely just not going to be that lead guy that we were expecting him to be before the Giants drafted Cam Skattebo. Because, he's still got that pass catching ability, but Cam Skattebo can catch the ball in the backfield too. He's a more powerful runner. He's a good pass blocker as well. I think Tyler Tracy is a little bit more polished as a pass blocker, but I think with time, Cam Skattebo can be a little bit more of a pass blocker as well, given a little bit more seasoning. The only thing that Tracy has over Skattebo is he's got better speed than Cam Skattebo, but I think Skattebo is just the biggest thing.
Is he's much of an edge though, because I would say their speeds are pretty comparable.
It's comparable, but I think Tyler Tracy has that little bit of
an edge.
Yeah, I think Skattebo is more of a power back. He's got the strong legs. He can sort of drive the pile. He can get those extra yards that you want there. So he's more of a physical style of running player, whereas Tyler Tracy's got that physicality, but he's more of a speed and finesse type of runner compared to Skattebo. But just like I said, I just like everything that I saw there. You also look, we talked about this with the Steelers. So it's like, I'm uncertain as far as who's going to be playing quarterback there because they obviously got Russell Wilson. They got Jameis Winston. They traded up to draft Jackson Dart. So it's like he's in play there. So whoever's playing at quarterback, though, I think they will rely on the running game to alleviate some of that pressure. There's a lot of talk that if the Jameis Winston's not involved in that whole passing game situation, they may release him and he may be a candidate to be signed by the Saints. I'm hearing that as a report. That could be very intriguing. Okay. But I think just the big thing here is that Tyrone Tracy, I think he had a lot of optimism before the draft, but after the draft, I think just unfortunately his stock took a massive hit. And honestly, Tad, Skattebo would have been one of my guys that I would have picked as my rookie riser from last episode. But I was like, you know what? I think we're probably playing this episode. I was like, that's sort of my way to continue that, where it's like, I love Cam Skattebo, but unfortunately that hurts both Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary.
First off, I hear the crab legs in New Orleans are fantastic. So it's just a match made in heaven there.
Yeah, but unfortunately, either place where he stays, he's not going to be able to eat any W's.
Well, and he's got to pay for them. Just gonna let that sit there for a moment. Anywho, no, I think that this is a fascinating pick because I don't know. And that's the thing. A lot of podcasters, a lot of analysts are afraid to say. I don't know how this Giants backfield is going to line up, but with that, uncertainty, going into this backfield, there's no shame in admitting I'm not touching either of them. Because, before the draft, Tyrone Tracy was draftable 100%. But now, like you pointed out, with the addition of Cam Skattebo, I don't know which one's going to take the lead role. I don't know when each one's going to take the lead role. That's why I was shocked when you kind of like pinpointed, a specific week. I was like, oh, damn. But yeah, because another thing I don't know, another thing I don't even think the Giants know, what the hell's going to happen in that quarterback's room. So that's another huge, like, there are just so many question marks that, much like we were talking about earlier of, the only player I draft on the Steelers is Metcalf. The only player I draft on the Giants is Neighbors. Outside of that, untouchable until the situation becomes a little bit more clear. So I really like Skattebo. I really like Tracy, which is why I'm like, oh, why'd you put them against each other? Like, it's like, it's like Civil War when Iron Man and Captain America going at it. It's like, no, stop. I like you both. No, don't. Okay. And Tony's almost dead. Because, they're going to cannibalize each other. So I think I agree with you. I'd place my bet with Skattebo for the more long-term success. But it wouldn't shock me if Skattebo was a little slow to adapt to the NFL, and Tracy had a good year. So I just don't know. And when it comes to fantasy, when you don't know, you go with what you know. Right? So I'm trying to think of an example. Bucky Irving's going to go too high. All right. So if you're asking me, who did the Cowboys sign from Denver?
Javonte Williams.
So if you ask me, like, would you take Cam Skattebo, Tyrone Tracy, or Javonte Williams? I'm taking Javonte Williams.
That's fair.
I know, like, the Cowboys are going to feed him, right? That's kind of my point. And to make it a little bit more interesting, if we take it to Los Angeles, where we have a Najee Harris versus Amari and Hampton situation, I would take either. And God knows, this show knows how much I hate Najee Harris. But I would take either Najee Harris or Amari Hampton over either of the Giants' backs right now. So I think that Giants' backfield is just like something, it's untouchable, in my opinion, for right now. Now, I think it makes for a very interesting target list on your waiver wire. But in terms of drafting, I'm not touching either of them.
That's fair. And I do want to make something clear. While I'm very high on Cam Skattebo, I'm not investing a very top-level pick in my fantasy draft for him. He's definitely one of those like last few guys on my bench that I want to stash as like, okay, down the road, I could see him, like I said, becoming that starting running back for the New York Giants. Like I said, week 4 is not out of the realm of possibility based on the talent that I see from him. But, it is the Giants. Crazier things can happen, and he may not get any playing time from that during that time there. So it's like, we'll see exactly how it plays out. But like, he's the type of lottery ticket player that I would want on my bench, that if everything works out the way that I'm envisioning it to, he will be like a RB1 territory type of player in that offense if everything works out possibly. But yeah, obviously it's a big if, but yeah, I'm not investing like him to be my starting running back or my flex running back, but he's definitely a guy that I want on my bench. I'd rather him not going to the waiver wire. And we always talk about this when we get to our waiver wire episodes. It's like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, unfortunately, I was too late. Somebody else was able to grab him because he went off one week. And it's like, okay, now he's a starting running back.
Damn it, Jamal Charles.
Exactly. Now I missed out on my chance. It's like, I'd rather sort of save a draft pick at the very end of my bench to use for him in hopes that he goes off, and then sort of just take my risk that way.
All right, I'm about to throw the show in quicksand, but I don't care. Number 1 overall pick in 2002 was?
2002?
2002.
It
was the first pick this franchise ever made.
Is it David Carr?
It is David Carr. Number 2 by the Panthers.
2 by the Panthers.
He played basketball.
Played basketball? That doesn't help either.
Really? That doesn't help? Wow. Okay. I would have gotten that one. Julius Peppers.
Okay.
I will be so impressed because I have never heard of this guy in my life, which ages me. The Detroit Lions took a quarterback out of Oregon at number 3.
Joey Harrington.
I've never heard of that.
Wow. Okay.
Never heard of him. Buffalo took Mike Williams.
If I remember correctly, you could fact check me after the episode, but I think Joey Harrington was the cover of one of the NCAA games.
No, get out of here.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. How about this for a throwback name? At number 5, the Chargers took Quentin Jammer. You remember Quentin Jammer?
I do remember Quentin Jammer.
This is also a great pick. Number 6, the Chiefs took Ryan Sims.
Wait, who was number 4? You skipped that one.
Oh, did I skip number 4? Bills took Mike Williams.
Oh.
Offensive tackle out of Texas. Never heard of him.
I don't remember that one
Yeah,
either.
no, yeah. At number 7, in my opinion, borderline Hall of Famer, Bryant McKinney. 2, do you remember?
No.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings, okay.
Number 8, Roy Williams to the Dallas Cowboys. But it's not Roy Williams, a receiver. It's Roy Williams, a safety. Exactly. Mm-hmm. At number 9, we have John Henderson.
Oh, with Jaguars, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at that. We finally hit one. And finally, at number 10, Levi Jones. I don't know. Offensive tackle out of Arizona State to the Bengals.
I knew he played offensive line, but yeah, I had no idea where he went to school or which team drafted him.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm about to give you like an underhand softball here. At number 11, and I'll stop here. The Colts took a player out of Syracuse who is
Marvin Harrison?
No! Come on, man. Syracuse, Colts.
Yeah, I thought that was Marvin Harrison.
No, Marvin Harrison did not go to Syracuse.
Where did he go to school then?
I don't know, but it wasn't Syracuse. Floyd Freeney, man. Spin move, 93. Yeah. Come on. You're despicable. That was great, Daffy. Anyway, all right, let's close it down.
Yeah, let's definitely close this down. So that'll close out the episode here of our, veterans that may have taken a hit or maybe seen a rise to their fantasy stock when it comes to the completion of the NFL draft. Like I sort of talked about earlier in the episode, this is sort of our kickoff to doing a lot more fantasy coverage because, we're getting closer and closer. Tad, is crazy that May is almost over and we're going to be closer to June. And it's like we'll be here 4th of July. Then all of a sudden,
Jason Davis already had his dynasty draft.
Exactly. And I think I saw a post on ESPN. We're 100 days away from the college football season. So it's like 100 days away for the college football season means we're like maybe 107, 108 days away from the NFL season starting too. So it's like, we're getting close, people. So, this is a good time to start prepping for your fantasy football leagues. And, guys, this is a good chance for you to follow us on our social media handles. You got us on Twitter. You got me at UntheSide23. You got Tad at TadSide94. Got the show handle at TheSideGuys. And, of course, on Instagram at TheSideGuys as well. That is where you can interact with us about these episodes, about future episodes, about past episodes, whatever it is. All your fantasy questions, that's where you sort of interact with us and ask us things, whether you're doing a dynasty draft, whether you're prepping for your first ever fantasy football draft. Whatever it is, interact with us. We'll give you direct questions in regards to all of your fantasy questions, and we'll give you all the answers that you seek. So make sure you follow us on all of our respective social media handles. Make sure you're subscribing to wherever you listen to your podcast. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so we're always up to date with our podcast episodes as well, whether with the video or the audio, whatever you prefer. And please, guys, make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network, because without them, there would be no us. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers and all of their draft. How did they see the draft going? Did they address all the positions that they had? Draft grades, they got all that coverage. And, of course, off-season coverage. Like we talked about, we're coming close on rookie mini camps and OTAs and preseason, all that stuff. So they got all that coverage leading up to there. All the college football news, but sort of like the transfer portal stuff where the UCLA got Nico Iamaleava and like USC just landed a couple prospects. So it's like they got all that coverage with the Trojans and the Bruins at the college football level. So all four LA Sports got you covered about the college and the pro level. But Tad, it is not just football anymore. They got you covered with NBA action with the draft happening in July. We just had the draft lottery. Say what you want about conspiracy theories, but we did.
We got a flag, baby.
We had something there. But yeah, they got you covered with all your Lakers and Clippers offseason coverage, and we're in the middle of the MLB season. They got you going with your Dodgers and Angels coverage there in the MLB season there. So yeah, we got you covered on all those major sports. So make sure you're giving them a follow. Like I said, lots of great content coming with a lot of great content producers. But guys, to everybody who's already supporting us by following us on social media, by interacting with us on social media, by watching our YouTube videos, by listening to our podcast, I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we really cannot thank you enough.
And as always, check out the Salute to Troy podcast on LAFB Network. You know, wherever you find our podcast, you can find theirs as well, hosted by, you know, I guess, person, Alvaro.
He is a person.
Yeah, he is a person. It's the highest quality, award I'll give him. So yeah, person Alvaro. No, in all seriousness though, he does give great analysis, and this is such a fascinating season for USC. Like Lincoln Riley's, seat is getting hotter and hotter. So if you need all the in-depth analysis on like these spring transfers and everything, Salute to Troy podcast with Alvaro. Definitely where you should check that out. LA Popfidential, hosted by very good friend of the show, Chauncey Lease. Be sure to check that out. Absolute, amazing Rams analysis. And even if you can't find it on the LAFB website, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find us, you can find him. And I'm begging you guys, please subscribe because he is just as much fun as we are. So be sure to check out what he's pushing out there because it is awesome content. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And please stay safe.